Imagine waking up one day and realizing you've been negotiating your potential away, not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because you've been hypnotized by your own excuses. And today, right now, this exact moment is the line in the sand where that story ends. There is a version of you that success is already trying to reach, a version of you that's stronger, clearer, more disciplined, more courageous, and closer than you think. But you won't meet that version by accident. You meet it by decision. By the moment you finally say, enough, this is the moment where you stop waiting for motivation. Because motivation is a mood. Motivation is weather. It changes, it shifts, it disappears the second life gets heavy. But a standard, a personal standard, that's climate. That's who you become, not how you feel. And success is attracted to the person who has raised their standards so high that the world has no choice but to rise with them. Every breakthrough starts with a truth. And sometimes that truth is uncomfortable. The truth that you've been living below your power, that you've been tolerating habits that steal your momentum, that you've allowed fear to sit behind the steering wheel of your future. And the moment you tell the truth, not to the world, but to yourself, everything begins to shift. Because success doesn't respond to intentions. It responds to alignment, your actions, your rituals, your discipline, your emotional ownership, the way you show up when nobody is clapping, when nobody is watching, when nobody is validating you. That's where the seeds of the life you want are actually planted. You don't become the person who attracts success by reading more quotes or waiting for the right opportunity. You become that person by taking radical responsibility, by doing the hard, unsexy, repetitive things that most people avoid, by turning discomfort into your training ground. You become that person by choosing growth over approval, clarity over chaos, and purpose over temporary relief. This is your awakening. This is the beginning of the internal revolution that changes everything on the outside. And if you're ready, truly ready, then let's go deeper. Let's walk into the next layer where we look at why we fear change even when our soul is begging for it. Fear is not the enemy. The enemy is the story you've attached to it. Most people don't fear failure itself. They fear what they think failure means about them. They fear judgment, they fear disappointment, they fear discovering their limitations. But here's the truth. Nothing limits you more than avoiding the experiences that were designed to grow you. Fear is a signal. It's data. It's the nervous system whispering, there's something here you haven't mastered yet. But instead of leaning in, most people retreat. They pull back. They shrink. They rehearse worst-case scenarios until their imagination becomes a cage. And when you live in that cage long enough, you start to believe it's normal. But fear is also the doorway. It's the threshold between who you are and who you could be. Every breakthrough demands a moment where you walk through that threshold. Not because you feel brave, but because you refuse to let fear make decisions for you anymore. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the choice to move before the fear disappears. When you look at anyone who has built something incredible, someone with influence, abundance, impact, mastery, they didn't get there by feeling ready. They got there by facing the discomfort you're still trying to avoid. They stepped forward when their voice was shaking, when their mind was doubting, when their circumstances were messy. They stopped waiting for certainty and created it through action. The biggest lie fear tells you is that you must protect yourself, protect your ego, protect your comfort, protect your old identity. But protection becomes imprisonment when it keeps you from evolution. And the price you pay for safety is possibility. When fear is driving, your dreams become optional. Your potential becomes negotiable. Your greatness becomes conditional. You break that cycle not by arguing with fear, but by acting despite it. By taking one step when your mind says no. By showing yourself that you can feel afraid and still execute. And with each step, the fear begins to lose its authority. You start reclaiming territory inside yourself. You start building proof that you're stronger than the stories that once controlled you. This is the shift. The shift from being driven by fear to being guided by purpose. And once you taste that freedom, you'll never go back. There comes a point in your journey when you realize that emotions are terrible leaders, but powerful indicators. Most people let their feelings decide their future. They wait to feel ready, to feel confident, to feel inspired. And because those emotions come and go like waves, their progress becomes inconsistent, unstable, unpredictable. They start, they stop, they sprint, they stall, and eventually they wonder why life isn't moving. But action, committed, disciplined, non-negotiable action, that's the great stabilizer. That's the force that cuts through doubt, hesitation, and emotional turbulence. You don't build a powerful life by chasing the right mood. You build it by creating the right behaviors. Emotion follows execution, not the other way around. Think about it. The workouts you didn't want to start, but ended feeling unstoppable. The tasks you avoided for days, then completed in 10 minutes. The conversation you feared, but walked out of stronger. Those results weren't born from feeling good. They were born from the moment you chose to act regardless of your internal weather. This is where most people fall. They treat emotions like commands instead of suggestions. If they feel tired, they rest. If they feel overwhelmed, they withdraw. If they feel insecure, they shrink. And every time they obey that feeling, they reinforce a powerless identity, an identity that says, my emotions are stronger than my choices. But the person who attracts success flips that script. They understand that discipline is the architect of freedom. They understand that your body doesn't need permission from your mind to move. They know that action creates clarity, not contemplation. They use behavior to train emotion instead of letting emotion sabotage behavior. And here's the powerful part. Once you build the habit of acting through resistance, you become unstoppable. You gain access to a level of self-respect that no external validation can match. You begin to trust yourself, not because things are easy, but because you've proven you can do what's required even when it's hard. Your momentum becomes your confidence. Your consistency becomes your identity. Your follow-through becomes your fuel. At that point, you don't chase success, you magnetize it, because success is naturally drawn to the person who moves with purpose, regardless of how they feel. Now that you understand this power, it's time to step into the core of transformation. Discipline is the great separator. It's the quiet force that determines who rises and who remains stuck. Not talent, not luck, not timing, discipline. The ability to do what needs to be done, especially when you don't want to do it. Most people treat discipline like it's punishment, like it's restriction, like it's a thing that takes life away from them. But discipline is the opposite. It's a thing that gives you your life back. Because without discipline, you become a slave to your impulses. You react instead of create. You survive instead of build. You drift instead of direct. And drifting is the fastest way to lose years of your life without realizing it. Discipline is what pulls you out of the drift. It's the anchor, the structure, the internal power source that keeps you moving toward the life you actually want, not the life your emotions try to trap you in. When you commit to discipline, you're not just choosing a set of habits. You're choosing a new identity. You're choosing to become the type of person who follows through, the type of person who honors their word, the type of person who doesn't need conditions to be perfect in order to execute. That identity becomes a magnet. It builds a reputation. It builds trust, both with others and with yourself, and self-trust. That's the foundation of personal power. When you trust yourself to show up consistently, you stop negotiating with your limitations. You stop making excuses for your circumstances. You stop shrinking around people who expect you to stay average. Discipline elevates your standard, and your standard elevates your entire life, your health, your finances, your relationships, your opportunities. The truth is, discipline isn't supposed to feel good in the beginning. It's supposed to feel uncomfortable. It's supposed to stretch you. It's supposed to expose the parts of you that have been allowed to stay soft. But that discomfort is the training ground. It's the proof that you're rewriting the patterns that held you back. With every disciplined choice, you create a new neural pathway, a new emotional baseline, a new story about who you are. And eventually, discipline stops feeling like a burden. It becomes a lifestyle. It becomes your edge. It becomes your freedom, because the disciplined person gets to experience the benefits that the undisciplined person keeps wishing for. And now that we've built the foundation, it's time to address something even deeper. The one thing most people avoid, yet the strongest people embrace. There is a turning point in every person's life when they realize that accountability is not a burden. It's liberation. It's the moment when you stop blaming circumstances, stop blaming people, stop blaming timing, and you finally look in the mirror with total honesty. Not to shame yourself, not to punish yourself, but to reclaim your power. Because every time you blame something outside of you, you give your power away. You hand over control of your future. You reinforce the story that you are at the mercy of the world instead of the creator of your life. And that story becomes a prison. A quiet, subtle prison that convinces you that you're stuck, when in reality, you are simply avoiding responsibility. Radical accountability is different. It's not about guilt. It's not about perfection. It's not about pretending that life is always fair. It's about ownership. It's about saying, I don't control everything that happens to me, but I do control how I respond. And that response defines my destiny. When you embrace accountability, your energy shifts. You stop waiting. You stop complaining. You stop negotiating with your goals. Instead, you start asking better questions. You start looking for solutions instead of excuses. You start taking actions that align with where you want to go instead of repeating behaviors from where you used to be. Accountability creates clarity. It forces you to admit where you're falling short. It exposes the habits that drain your potential. It shines a light on the patterns you've been running unconsciously, the patterns that sabotage your momentum. And when you bring those patterns into the light, they lose their power. The truth is, most people fear accountability because it removes the hiding places. It removes the comfort of blaming external factors. It requires you to confront yourself, your distractions, your inconsistencies, your self-sabotage. But that confrontation is where transformation begins, because you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. When you take radical accountability, you become the author of your story again. You become the force that shapes your future instead of the character reacting to it. And once you step into that level of ownership, opportunities start opening. People respond differently. Life responds differently, because success trusts the person who takes responsibility for their direction. And with accountability in place, the path becomes clearer, but also more demanding, which means next we need to address the choices that scare people the most. Growth is never found in the comfortable choices. Comfort maintains you. It preserves you. It keeps you the same. But uncomfortable choices, those are the ones that redefine your entire identity. They feel heavy. They feel risky. They feel overwhelming. Yet they are the exact decisions that create the separation between who you are and who you're becoming. Every breakthrough demands discomfort. Not because life is cruel, but because evolution requires friction. You cannot strengthen a muscle without resistance. You cannot build emotional resilience without pressure. You cannot expand your life while clinging to the old version of yourself that was designed for survival, not expansion. The uncomfortable choice is usually the right one. The conversation you've been avoiding, the boundary you've been afraid to set, the habit you know you must break, the environment you know you must leave, the opportunity you know you're meant to pursue even though you have no guarantee. These choices feel threatening because they challenge your identity. They pull you away from the familiar, and we are all wired to gravitate toward what feels safe, even when it limits us. But here's the truth. What feels safe is often what keeps you stuck, and what feels uncomfortable is what sets you free. When you start making uncomfortable decisions, something powerful happens. You begin to develop courage as a skill, not a reaction. You begin to realize that fear isn't a stop sign, it's a signal of where your next level lives. You begin to recognize that discomfort is not danger, it's direction. Most people wait for the perfect moment to make bold choices. They wait for clarity, they wait for confidence, they wait for certainty. But uncomfortable decisions rarely come with guarantees. They come with possibility, they come with potential. They come with the chance to build a life aligned with your highest standard instead of your lowest fear. And once you act, once you choose the harder path intentionally, you discover something extraordinary, you survive it. You grow from it. You become stronger than the fear you thought would break you. That moment becomes proof. Proof that you can do hard things. Proof that you can walk directly into discomfort and come out more powerful on the other side. And that proof builds momentum. It builds identity. It builds self-respect. It becomes the foundation for bigger risks, deeper resilience, and greater expansion. Now that you understand the necessity of uncomfortable choices, it's time to explore the power that keeps you moving through them when life gets heavy. Perseverance is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with or something only a select few possess. Perseverance is a decision, a daily recommitment to your vision, your goals, your purpose, even when the path feels steep, unclear, or unfair. It's the understanding that the game isn't won by the person who moves the fastest, but by the person who refuses to stop moving. Life will test you, not once, not twice, but over and over again. It will test you through setbacks that shake your confidence, through delays that challenge your patience, through disappointments that tempt you to give up. And every time life tests you, you're being asked one question: how badly do you want this? Most people quit not because they can't succeed, but because they cannot tolerate the discomfort that comes before success. They hit resistance and interpret it as a sign they're not meant for greatness. They hit obstacles and assume the universe is pushing them away. But the truth is, resistance is part of the process. Obstacles are part of the training. Perseverance is forged in the moments when progress feels invisible. This is where champions are built, in the invisible work, in the mornings when the alarm goes off and discipline feels like a burden, in the evenings when your mind whispers that you've done enough for the day, in the quiet hours when nobody is watching, nobody is applauding, and nobody is reassuring you that the effort matters. But you keep going anyway, because perseverance is not about intensity. It's about consistency. It's about showing up over and over again, not perfectly, but relentlessly. It's about trusting that the compound effect of small intentional actions will generate massive results, even if you cannot see the progress yet. The greatest transformations don't announce themselves. They accumulate, and perseverance is the force that keeps you in the game long enough for those accumulations to turn into breakthroughs. And here's the beautiful truth. Every time you persevere, you're not just building the life you want, you're building the version of you who is worthy of that life. The stronger you become, the bigger your life becomes. The more resilient your mindset, the more opportunities you can hold. Success isn't just attracted to perseverance, it depends on it. Now that you understand how perseverance carries you through the valleys, it's time to explore how your internal world shapes the external one. Your mindset is not just a mental concept. It's not just positive thinking. It's not just a motivational slogan. Your mindset is the operating system of your entire life. It determines what you tolerate, what you pursue, what you attract, and what you believe you deserve. It influences your relationships, your income, your health, your opportunities, everything. Most people don't realize this, but they're not held back by a lack of potential. They're held back by a mindset that is wired for survival instead of expansion. A mindset trained to avoid risk, avoid discomfort, avoid exposure. A mindset that plays small because small feels safe. But that mindset has a cost. It shows up in the quality of your decisions, the people you choose, the money you earn, and the chances you're willing to take. When your mindset is reactive, you attract reactive circumstances. When your mindset is fearful, you attract fearful outcomes. When your mindset is based on scarcity, you make scarcity your reality. Mindset is not invisible. It leaks into your behavior, and your behavior creates your results. Look at relationships. If you believe you're unworthy, you tolerate people who treat you like you're unworthy. If you believe you're too much or not enough, you accept relationships that mirror those beliefs. When you shift your mindset to one of worth, strength, and clarity, your relationships change, not because the world shifts, but because you no longer allow what you once tolerated. Look at money. Money responds to mindset long before it responds to strategy. A person with a scarcity mindset will sabotage financial opportunities, delay decisions, avoid risks, and operate from fear. A person with an expansion mindset sees money as a tool, not a threat. They seek knowledge, not excuses. They invest, they build, they grow, not because they're lucky, but because they think differently. Look at opportunity. The person with a reactive mindset waits for the right time. The person with an empowered mindset creates the right time. They recognize patterns. They take initiative. They position themselves. They show up in rooms that challenge them. They make decisions that align with the future they want, not the fear they feel. When your mindset upgrades, your life upgrades. And when your mindset aligns with your highest standard, the world begins responding to you with opportunities that match that standard. You stop chasing, you start attracting, because success meets you at the level of your mindset. And now, with the internal game elevated, it's time to talk about the external behaviors that reinforce everything. Consistency is the multiplier of everything you've been building. It's not the big decisions, the dramatic declarations, or the once-in-a-while bursts of motivation that transform your life. It's the small, deliberate, repeated actions, the ones you commit to every single day, that shape your identity, your destiny, and your level of success. Most people underestimate the power of daily consistency because it feels too simple, too ordinary, too slow. They want transformation to feel explosive, cinematic, revolutionary. But the truth is, the most extraordinary lives are built through extraordinarily consistent days, quiet days, disciplined days, days that don't feel exciting at all, yet accumulate into results that look impossible from the outside. Consistency is the bridge between intention and achievement, between who you are and who you want to become. It's the evidence you create for yourself that you are capable, reliable, and committed. And that internal evidence becomes confidence. Not the temporary confidence that disappears when circumstances change, but the deep, unshakable confidence that can only be earned through follow-through. Daily consistency works because it compounds. A small action done once does nothing. A small action done every day rewires your brain, reshapes your habits, and rebuilds your identity. You don't become disciplined by thinking about discipline. You become disciplined by performing disciplined actions. You don't become resilient by reading about resilience. You become resilient by showing up on the days you don't feel like it. You don't build momentum by waiting for momentum. You build it through repetition. And here's the truth. Consistency is not about perfection. You will have days where you fall short. You will have days where life pulls at you. You will have days where you question everything. But consistency is not destroyed by a missed day. It's destroyed by the story you tell yourself afterward. The story that says, see, I always fall off, or it doesn't matter anymore. Consistency is preserved by recommitment. The decision to resume, to realign, to continue forward without self-judgment. The person who masters consistency wins in every area of life. Health, wealth, relationships, contribution, business, fulfillment. Because consistency builds trust. Trust builds opportunity. Opportunity builds expansion. And now that your behaviors are aligned with your vision, it's time to complete the journey to create the version of you that naturally attracts success instead of chasing it. Here's the moment where everything comes together. All the lessons, all the strategies, all the hard truths. They are pointing to one ultimate principle. You don't attract success by wishing for it, by hoping for it, or by waiting for it. You attract success by becoming the type of person that success cannot ignore, by becoming a force of value, discipline, courage, and integrity, by becoming someone who meets life with relentless action, unshakable mindset, and unwavering perseverance. Success is drawn to energy. It's drawn to standards. It's drawn to people who live on a higher frequency of responsibility and purpose. And that's not vague spirituality. That's real world truth. People hire, invest in, and follow those who show up as the person they need. Opportunities land on the doorstep of those who consistently prove themselves. Wealth accumulates for those who execute, not those who debate. Relationships deepen with those who contribute, not those who take. And all of it begins with the person you choose to be today. Becoming that person means integrating everything you've learned. It means facing fear and stepping forward anyway. It means taking action even when motivation is absent. It means building discipline so strong that life's chaos can't shake you. It means taking radical accountability and never passing the responsibility for your life onto someone else. It means making uncomfortable choices, embracing perseverance, cultivating an empowered mindset, and showing up consistently every day. But here's the critical truth. Becoming the person who attracts success is not a goal. It's a process. It's not a destination. It's a continuous refinement of your character, your habits, and your vision. And each day you commit to this process, your life transforms. Your relationships, your opportunities, your influence, and your results begin to shift in ways that feel effortless because the alignment is internal, not external. This is the power of identity. When you embody the values, behaviors, and standards of the person you aspire to be, the world has no choice but to respond. Success isn't chasing you. It's meeting you where you already stand. You stop negotiating with fear, procrastination, or excuses. You stop hoping for external validation. You stop waiting for someone else to open the doors. You walk through the doors you've built step by step, action by action, standard by standard. So today, decide. Decide to become that person. Decide to raise your standard. Decide to face fear. Take action. Embrace discipline. Own your life and show up consistently. Decide to make uncomfortable choices. Persevere through resistance and cultivate a mindset that sees possibility where others see obstacles. Decide to be the kind of person who doesn't just chase success, the kind of person success naturally seeks out. Because when you become that person, your life no longer feels like a series of random events. It becomes a deliberate, powerful, unstoppable journey toward the extraordinary life you were always meant to live. The journey ends not with a finish line, but with the daily choice to be that person. And that choice is the truest form of success.